Hi, I'm Dave Koster. I'm the General Manager with the Holland Board of Public Works. The Holland Board of Public Works provides electric, water, wastewater, and broadband services for the City of Holland and a lot of the surrounding area. And over this past year, we've had a number of accomplishments and look forward to a lot of interesting initiatives and projects in the next fiscal year. Let's start with the electric utility. Electric utility, probably the biggest highlight from this last year is the fact that we were able to realize the benefit that Holland Energy Park has brought to our community and essentially have paid down $91 million of the debt that was issued to finance that plant, resulting in our ability to lower rates this last July 1 by 10%. And that is across all of our customer classes. And at the same time, we made elective renewable energy available to our customers at a decreased cost. So basically for the same price, a customer could elect to replace their energy with renewable energy at the same rate that they paid back in June. We're excited about the future. Next 2 years, the remainder of that debt will be paid off. We were able to place the $35 million that remains with Macatawa Bank here in our community and at a very low interest rate, so that the result of all of this refinancing and debt retirement will save our customers nearly $50 million over what would have been the remaining life of that debt had we not paid it off. Looking forward to this year, and over this past year still, we have seen tremendous growth in all of our load in our different sectors, residential, industrial. Really, we've had a number of new neighborhood developments and new businesses and existing businesses that have grown, to the point where we do see that continuing in this next year, and we are planning for a $8 to $10 million substation in the southeast area of our service territory. And so planning is going on with that. We're also in the third year out of 5 years of renewal of our underground circuits that were put in place prior to 1990 to ensure reliability in our system is maintained. Another key initiative was the completion of an update to our our community energy plan with the strategic development team that was put in place by the mayor over this last year. That plan that was recommended by the strategic development team moves a number of initiatives forward in our community on energy efficiency, and the BPW will be playing a big part in some of that, including continued promotion of our elective renewable energy rate, but also we are increasing the amount of energy waste reduction that we are trying to get from our different customer segments from 1%, which was currently in place under the state of Michigan's law, to a 2% level of savings annually over the next few years as we grow into that. Additionally, we are promoting electrification, starting with vehicles. Over this last year, we did put an electric vehicle incentive in for home charging. We're looking at growing into other ways of changing fuel sources from natural gas to electricity, incentivizing that to promote a better environmental condition for our community at the same time. The BPW has begun to electrify its fleet of vehicles, including some hybrid purchases, but also hybridized bucket trucks where the buckets are actually electric driven as opposed to being driven from the idling vehicle, which allows us to shut those vehicles down when they're in service, providing the actual restoration and repair work on our system. We have 2 new bucket trucks that are on order that will have that same electric system for the buckets, and we're looking at making additional purchases to supplement our fleet going forward. And finally, as it relates to our electric resources, we are planning for the retirement of 2 other coal assets that are not in the City of Holland, but in the area that we actually receive power from. Campbell 3 up in Port Sheldon is planned to retire in 2025, and the Bell River facility over in St. Clair has announced that it will stop burning coal in 2028. So we are layering in renewable resources into our portfolio in order to take advantage of that and to supplement our power needs as those plants retire. So that's the summary of the electric utility. Now we'll move on to the water utility. This last year has been a big accomplishment for bringing in about 4,000 customers that are in the Park Township area on the north side of the lake, from a wholesale relationship to a retail relationship where now we are the billing customer and we're maintaining that system just as we do with the remainder of our water area. That was a big initiative, and we're glad to have those customers on board, and we're excited about being able to be their service provider. Have some major projects planned in the next year coming up. We have actually begun the engineering work for a major construction project, our new transmission main, which will come from 160th Avenue on the north side along Lakewood Boulevard, all the way to River Avenue and down to Howard to connect into lines going across the bridge into the City of Holland, as well as to our line that serves the City of Zeeland. This is an important project because the existing main was built in 1957 and is over 60 years old, and so from a reliability standpoint, the new line will add some redundancy and resiliency to that, but it'll also improve the hydraulics of that system, because as our system grows and the City of Zeeland grows, we may need to call upon supplemental water resources, and we have a connection to the City of Wyoming's plant that if we draw upon, this line will allow us to use both our plant and that supplemental water at the same time, as opposed to having a bottleneck in our transmission infrastructure. It's a $15 million project that will be beginning here in the spring of 2022 and last over the next full fiscal year. We are also continuing to replace galvanized service lines and lead goosenecks in our community. The state of Michigan has a requirement that these are replaced over the next 20 years. We actually began that process a couple of years ago with certain projects and have done a number of those replacements already. We do closely coordinate our service line and distribution main replacements with the City of Holland when they are working on street restoration in those areas, and we have a number of projects this next fiscal year where we'll continue that effort. So the final thing in the water utility is that we are addressing an area of our community that has clay soil, and clay soil can be corrosive to certain iron water distribution mains. Specifically, this occurs in the Holland Heights area, and we have a 5-year plan to improve the reliability of that water distribution area so that we don't have breaks that occur from time to time. And so over this next year, we'll have a few streets where distribution mains will convert that from an iron pipe to a PVC pipe, and we'll also be addressing some of the services that go to the homes in those areas as well that are galvanized. And so we're excited about being able to improve the service in the Holland Heights area over the next 5 years. Moving on to the wastewater utility, probably the biggest thing on our radar in the wastewater utility is a project that actually began construction this year. It's been highly visible throughout the community. It's our anaerobic digester project. It's tremendously important for our community in a lot of regards. First of all, the cost of disposing of biosolids has become very expensive and harder to do. An anaerobic digester will actually reduce our biosolids in half, the volume in half. At the same time, it produces an available heat source for electricity production and for heat on site, so that we'll be able to produce electricity to meet most of the water reclamation facility's needs with this combined heat and power unit that comes off from the digester. And then finally, the digester makes a biosolid product that is much more flexible in its reuse potential. So we're excited about the possibility of not just disposing of biosolids going forward, but actually putting it to some beneficial reuse. That project is well underway. You can see it very visibly along River Avenue, and we invite you to take a look at some of the signage that will be going up over this next year as we try to tell the community a little bit more about the education around the digester and why it's important to our community. We continue to see an economic boom among some of our high-strength dischargers. We have a lot of food processors in our community, and so we're planning for and working with those dischargers to make sure that there's smart growth going on, and eventually they are putting in pretreatment facilities to expand the life of the water reclamation facility. We also have a master plan for the water reclamation facility that will be complete here in this current fiscal year, and it'll be a guide for our future investments at water reclamation going forward. And then finally, for reliability of our water collection system, we have a number of efforts going on to make sure that we're relining those lines where we can to prevent inflow and infiltration and prevent root growth that can be something that leads to pluggage in those lines. But we're also addressing our lift stations through a full reliability study, which again will be a planning instrument for our capital investments in the coming years. And finally, for our broadband utility, it's our utility that's seen a tremendous amount of growth over the years. And matter of fact, over the last couple of years, we deployed a GPON system, or a passive optical network system, in our downtown, which has offered up a new kind of service to our businesses and residents between 7th and 9th Street and between Garrettson and Maple. And we are looking at growing that system throughout our downtown area. The City Council has asked that the BPW and the city staff look at solutions to make broadband, high-speed fiber connectivity access available throughout our entire community. And there's a task force that's underway that we're working with, and we're getting close to recommendations that will be public here in this fiscal year and could lead to some major community initiatives and decisions here going into fiscal '23. But regardless of what happens, we see broadband growth as an important part of meeting our community's needs going into the future. I want to thank the entire BPW team, 175 dedicated employees that are serving our community each and every day for their work over this last year, and we look forward to a very exciting and challenging year over this next fiscal year.